Hey everybody, I'm PJ. I'm here to talk about the differences between a real and a fake Nike Alphafly 3. The first thing you're going to see here is that the boxes are completely different. I've ordered this pair from the Nike website directly, a little over $300. I was able to find this pair on a third-party website. Only cost me $125, but you can definitely see right off the bat when you get these, they are completely different. So first thing, when you open up the box, the first thing you should see right here is this bag that Nike's going to give you. It's a nice high-quality drawstring bag. That should be there. Second, the paper quality. Not only are the numbers larger, but the paper is a lot nicer, a little shinier. Whereas if you go to the fake bag, or fake box, does not have a bag. Paper is a little more waxy, as well as the numbers are completely different. A lot of more imitation Nike Zoom symbols that you have on than you have on the real ones. So if I'm being honest, the first thing I did is I purchased the fake ones thinking I was going to get a really good deal. But when I got the box, I didn't really notice how damaged the box was. I didn't really notice the paper. The first thing that really caught my eye was how heavy the imitation shoe is, which got me thinking, is it real? Is it fake? I didn't know the differences. I had never owned a pair of threes. I couldn't find anything on the internet to determine which ones were real, which ones were fake. So the only way to test this was to go on the Nike's actual website and purchase a real pair, do a side-by-side comparison. Once I did that, both shoes in hand, the very first thing I noticed was the significant weight difference between the real ones and the fake ones. So the first thing we're going to do is weigh the fake ones. You may or may not have the scale here, but I was able to fortunately take one from work. This is the imitation pair, and it should weigh around 341 and a half grams. Just for a clarification, this is a US size 10 and a half, and again, 341 and a half grams. Whereas if you take the real one purchased on the Nike website, 224 grams. That's a difference of 117 grams a shoe. Multiplied by both shoes you're wearing, that's a significant weight difference. The second thing that I noticed, all the previous pairs of Nike Alphaflys that I've had, this insole is glued in there. Whereas with the fake one, it comes right out. There's no adhesive, there's no sticking, there's no nothing. The real one, not gonna yank these out because I don't want to, but they are stuck in there. They are glued, can't come out. Another major difference that I noticed, look at the heel pocket. Again, real one on your right, my left, fake one on the opposite side. The significant size difference in the heel pocket. So you can see with the fake one, it almost looks like it's been worn before. It's a little blown out. Whereas with the real one, nice and tight, really locks that heel into place, doesn't allow it to slip. One actually funny thing that I did notice, I was able to take the the insert out and actually scan that QR code. It does direct you to the Nike website, so definitely be careful. Don't just assume that because it directs you to the Nike website that it's actually real. It's still an imitation. These fakes are getting a lot better in their quality. And put this back in. So now we're going to talk about some visual differences that you're going to get between the imitation shoes and the authentic shoes. Ironically enough, in the imitation shoes, one of the shoes actually is going to have a authenticity tag. Nike doesn't need to send you anything that verifies its authenticity. Nike doesn't need that. It's Nike. Nobody's trying to sell you some bad stuff directly from the website. When we look visually at the shoes, one of the glaring differences is the fabric and the stitching. Again, imitation here, you see how closer knit the fabric and the material is, whereas with the real and authentic Alphafly, much more transparent, a lot less fabric, a lot lighter, a lot more airflow that goes through there. Again, taking and keeping it all the way around, same stitch pattern, same fabric that goes all the way around. Whereas if you look here with the imitation one, you get the knitting and the stitching until you get to an actual independent piece of fabric that goes around. That was one of the biggest differences visually. As I continue to go around, the heel loops are not the same. For the imitation one, if I was to take this ruler and actually measure, the heel loop stitching to the upper portion of the foam is roughly about a half an inch, so it's a much larger loop. Whereas on the authentic Alphafly, it's closer to 1.5 inches, a much smaller loop. If you look at the emblems on the back here, you see what almost looks like tiger striping on this image on the imitation shoe, whereas you do not see that tiger stripe on the authentic one. If you were to look at this tiger striping, it does not match with what's inside or on the tongue. And again, that's actually on both shoes, that tiger striping almost. And you're not going to get that on the authentic Alphaflys. Another big difference is with the color or the painting. The imitation shoes do a very good job of trying to make it look as nice and authentic as possible. And to the untrained or to the inexperienced eye, if you've never actually owned a pair of Alphaflys or an advanced running shoe from Nike, you would actually think that these imitation ones, just off of their look and the way that they're painted, are the correct ones, and these ones don't look as nice and would look fake. But one of the close-up factors that you can see is these lines don't actually match up because they were not colored or painted at the same time. This top portion was made, the screen was printed on, it was then mated up with the bottom, and they did their best to actually mate it up. Whereas if you look at the authentic Alphaflys, the paint scheme is actually one of the last things that they did. You can see it doesn't really go all the way down, and then the paint is actually transferred over to the fabric that's underneath. You see again, no paint underneath, paint transferred over on top. Keeping with that same theme, because the imitation shoe was painted prior to being assembled, you can see that the paint actually transfers over under the sole prior to then placing the rubber on the forefront of the shoe. Whereas the authentic one, paint last, the paint does not transfer into these holes, and you can actually see the porous portions of the foam that are underneath the forefront of the shoe. One of the biggest gripes or concerns about these quality of shoes is the longevity of them. You pay a lot of money, they're not really good for a whole lot of miles. One of the things that the imitation shoes did was they put significantly more rubber on the heel, makes them last a little longer. Whereas the authentic ones, those things are going to need to be changed out a lot quicker, a lot less rubber on the heel. And lastly, the foam itself, and this kind of goes back to the weight. The density, or how much force it takes in order for you to compress this foam, is significantly different. With the real ones, it doesn't take a whole lot of force to compress this foam because they want that bounce back, they want that compression. Whereas with the imitation ones, significantly more force, and it doesn't even compress as much. Keeping in line with that, the biggest key points of these shoes is that carbon fiber plate. If you've ever played with carbon fiber or dealt with it before, you can tell the difference. Again, real, fake. Tap that plate that's supposed to be carbon fiber is actually plastic. And you may or may not be able to see here, it's very matte or flat finished. Whereas with the authentic ones, the sound is significantly different. You can instantly tell that it's carbon fiber. It's much more gloss finished on top because it's that true carbon fiber. The purpose of the carbon fiber plate, help propelling you forward, so it should be very stiff. It should not want to move because the weight of your body and the weight of your run and the stride that you take is going to propel you forward. Whereas with these imitation ones, does not take a whole lot of force, and that shoe actually bends complete because again, it's not carbon fiber, it's just plastic. Last but not least, the performance. That's the whole reason for buying these shoes, is to help in your performance. So what I plan on doing is going out and running 2 identical distances and trying my best to run the identical pace. See my performance, see my heart rate, see the output that I'm doing. First, I'm going to run with the imitation shoe. I'm going to then look at the data, run that exact same pace, exact same distance, and see the difference in running with the authentic shoe. Once we're all done, we'll compare the notes and I'll get back to you at the end of this video.